Hello again, it's Henry with Blue Review. I'm just going to barrel right through this. This is like take 87, so let's try to make it the right final one. You hear that? I'm going to play you just a little bit of the beginning of this film. You probably recognize something here. Now, it's like a Blue Oyster Cult song or something. I'm going to turn it down. So you probably guessed that's Godzilla. I know, you're like, duh. Anyway, today I'm going to do a one-off, kind of a one-day thing, just two films for today, and I'm not going to announce tomorrow's films until tomorrow, and then I'll announce four like I've been doing. So um, essentially, today I'm going to cover a theme called Japanese Nightmares, and I'm going to deal with, obviously, the first one is going to be Gojira, 1954, otherwise known as Godzilla, otherwise in America and Western countries as Godzilla King of the Monsters, us Westerners. And in that version, of course, the unamazing Perry Mason himself, Raymond Burr is the star, as opposed to the amazing Godzilla. So, I mean, Godzilla is in it, of course, but and he's tearing things up. But Godzilla in this film is very different than all the subsequent films. First of all, this is in black and white. The photography is very moody, very gritty at times. A lot of very dark shoots, illumined by things like spinning high tension wires being pulled down, and the incredible explosions caused by Godzilla. So what is Godzilla? He's like a dinosaur. He's like the last of the dinosaurs. And the implication here is that the nuclear testing post Hiroshima, woke him up, woke this slumbering beast, and he's wreaking havoc on Japan. So, obviously we're talking about a metaphorical kind of thing, an allegorical kind of thing, but in the very literal sense, we're talking about a monster movie. And this is one that probably blows away all the American giant monster movies of the 50s. I mean, there were some good ones like Them, for instance, the giant ants. I loved that one. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. I mean, good lord. But it's like most of them were kind of hokey. I mean, the stuff with Ray Harryhausen now, like 50 million miles to Earth, or it might be 20 million miles to Earth. Yeah, that one, that's pretty amazing. But everything Harryhausen touched was amazing. But this is mostly a guy in a suit, but he's photographed with miniatures destroying them, and then it's intercut, of course, with real destruction and a little bit of maybe stock footage thrown in, and some various special effects. But overall, this is kind of a noir kind of film, kind of a Japanese noir film that our main characters they're struggling, and in this case, instead of struggling about the Yakuza or romantic woes, they're struggling with this gigantic beast that's risen from the ocean and is going to demolish their homeland. So, it's mainly one young girl and her semi-boyfriend trying to persuade a kind of eccentric scientist with an eye patch to use his special weapon that he's created. Well, it's a potential weapon. It's an oxygen destroyer, and essentially they want him to use this to finish off Godzilla. Godzilla is, wading through town, destroying. Takashi Shimura's on the scene. He had a little break from a Kurosawa film or two, and he makes an appearance. There's a lot of military guys. It's kind of, it's kind of probably something you've seen a million times before, but in this context, if you go back and watch this Criterion edition, then you'll be seeing a fresh, special view of this. It's remastered. It's beautiful. It's as it was intended to be in Japan in the original Japanese language and the original cut. So I'm happy to say that's going to be my first one for today. I'm unhappy to say that I'm going to rise from this area for 1 second, and I'm going to grab my props that I should have had next to me. And, in the meantime, I'll let you enjoy some amazing, incredible Godzilla sounds. So here goes. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Yes, well, okay. I'm back. Calm down. So, Godzilla. This is a hell of a package. I'm just going to say it. And it's really wonderful because um, who thought when this came out that Criterion would be doing Godzilla? Well, since then, they've done the Bruce Lee's Greatest Hits set. Um, they've done a complete Godzilla set. It's amazing. And I've got to say that they'd already done the complete Zatoichi and complete Lone Wolf and Cub. So getting into the kaiju is pretty interesting, and them kind of bringing that to a level of high art with their cachet they have being their Criterion collection. So this is great. This came out a few years ago. Look at this cover, man. Godzilla. Now, the front cover artwork here, and the artwork that I'm going to show you as I unfold this was done by Bill Sienkiewicz. I do know Bill not very well. I wanted to get him to draw covers or paint covers for a comic series called The Defenders Incorporated, which was going to be a Defenders relaunch that I pitched to Marvel in 2006. He was game. He said, as long as Marvel's paying me, I'll do it. And that was a cool project, and it didn't quite get off the ground, but it got a little more traction than some projects that are submitted to Marvel. So, yeah, let me see if I can open this. Jeez. Okay, so you slip this thing off. Look at that, man. Godzilla's teeth. It's the backside. Now, see, in this, he's kind of underwater. So this could be him being attacked by the oxygen destroyer. Oops, I gave away a spoiler. Okay. So anyway, let me unfold this here. There's one of the bridges he destroys. Look at him. He pops up. Literally a pop-up Godzilla by Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean, is there anything that's cooler than this? This come out on Blu-ray? I don't think so. There's also a booklet. But I mean, it's seriously. He's on the bridge and Godzilla pops up with Sienkiewicz art. I mean, I can't get over this. I've only had the Blu-ray a short time. I bought the DVD a few years ago, used at my last job, but this one I got during one of the wonderful half-off sales that Barnes & Noble has twice a year for Criterion. They're getting ready to do one any minute now, November. It's usually April and November, so they did do a flash sale not long ago, and that's where I pretty much spent what little budget I had for Criterion's for 2020. And I'll talk about those in a later episode. So I won't be ordering from the November sale, but if you get a chance to, if you can afford it, I highly recommend it. You could get this thing for $20, brand new. I love this. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm going on and on about it. I sound like a geek. The thing is, I'm not a huge Godzilla geek the way some people are. I mean, I've known some people, including a close friend who used to live with me, who are just absolute Godzilla fanatics. And, I know people who have seen every movie and can name every iteration of Godzilla and his whole evolution. I know quite a lot of that stuff because I'm a geek and I'm kind of trivia obsessed, obsessed with useless ephemeral information. But I'm not obsessed with Godzilla per se, that one character. Um, but I do love the character. I do think this film is showing him in a different light than you see him. In other words, if you've seen the other movies first, you haven't really seen the real Gojira, the real creature that's kind of a force of nature, wrathful beast bearing down on Japan and destroying everything. And they have to kind of take this gamble with this guy's oxygen destroyer, and he's afraid and he's terrified that it's going to be used immediately by the military to like destroy tons of humans, and so he's extremely reticent to do it. He kind of decides, well, if anybody's going to do it, I'm going to sacrifice my life to do it. And man, it's great. It's kind of a heartbreaking ending in a way, and maybe not for the reasons that you think I might be saying that. Um, so yeah, enjoy. So that's a good Halloween pick, I think, a giant monster. I thought about watching King Kong this year. I couldn't figure out something to pair it with that was really Halloween appropriate, but King Kong is a character, does make an appearance in uh, a movie I will be covering very close to Hallows Eve itself, and that's all I'm going to say for now. So it's not a Kong-less Halloween, and it's not a giant monster-less Halloween by any means. So next up is Kuroneko. I know I'm not saying that right. Kuroneko. Kuroneko. This is a Japanese ghost story. It's filmed by um, so this guy's named Kaneto Shindo, uh, who is an amazing director and an amazing writer. He wrote a ton of films for the studios back then in Japan. This is talking back then, meaning the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. Um, and, essentially, he directed a couple of genuine classics. And I would say that this one is, yeah, this is kind of a genuine classic. Onibaba, which he wrote and directed, I've loved for many, many years. I used to watch that every Halloween. For some odd reason, Criterion has not put that on Blu-ray yet. That's like a crime against humanity, but I guess hopefully they're just holding back for the right moment. But they did go ahead and, bring Kuroneko out, and I'm just kind of trying to read this here in my strange red light here. I believe it's 1968 when this came out. It's black and white, as is Onibaba. I think Onibaba may have come out slightly earlier. Look at that cool reflection from the Godzilla screen. So Kuroneko is the kind of legend that has been done a lot in Japanese film back in those days, all the way dating back to like the 1930s. There have been a lot of these kaidan films or ghost, films, and I really dig them. I mean, the atmosphere is great, and at their best, they're stunning and they're fascinating, and they're really some of the coolest horror that exists. Onibaba is kind of unbeatable to me, but I gotta say, when I first saw Kuroneko, and I took a chance on it, I'd been reading about it for 20 some years. I took a chance on it with one of the Criterion half off sales for Barnes and Noble. No, I don't work for Barnes and Noble or Criterion, just to make that clear. I'm just really happy that that exists. I was like disappointed with Kuroneko, especially I kept thinking on Ababa and some of the other films Shindo had been involved with, and I don't know. I guess I just wasn't in the mood. I wasn't paying enough attention, but it kind of went. So I put it away for a while. I tried again, and I got distracted. I did start to really appreciate its visual beauty. Well, uh, recently I watched it again, and I'm going to watch it after Godzilla here, and I've got to say that now I fully appreciate it. You just got to home in on it and get on that wavelength. Same with Onibaba, on two levels. Not only the atmosphere, the look of it, which is overwhelming once you lose yourself in and immerse yourself, but the story itself is also engrossing. And the story, those qualities, not only those qualities are similar, are those qualities similar to Onibaba, but the story itself is kind of similar too. We won't get into that movie because I'm not reviewing that movie here. I just keep name dropping it because I love it. But essentially, you have two young women who are living in a shack, and one is the mother of a young samurai who goes off to war, and the other is his wife. So the younger girl and her mother-in-law, basically. And unfortunately, as one of the wars is winding down, a whole pack of samurai. I would say 20 maybe. I was trying to count them. It just seemed like they never ended. Flood into their home, steal their food, and rape, murdered them, and set their hut on fire. And then just kind of walk out like, yeah, one after another, after another, after another. And you just get sick of seeing them filing out, knowing uh, this horrible, horrible fate they visited on these two hapless women. So, well, the corpses, after the fire burns itself out, the corpses have a visitor, a black cat, a Koroneko, I think is really what a black cat is, more or less. I don't know. Once again, I'm mispronouncing that. Um, so this cat kind of crawls over their corpses, and there's some kind of spiritual exchange thing that happens, and it's never fully explained because it's supernatural and it's abstract, but essentially from then on, for a while, samurais who stray into certain areas are brutally destroyed by these women, usually seduced by the younger girl and ravaged to death, clawed to death by the mother, and they drink the blood of the samurais. They devour them. This isn't all like super graphic, but it's still pretty intense. Um, until finally this one samurai who is kind of rising in the ranks and ambitious but actually a decent guy with a good heart. He's kind of like the epitome maybe of what a samurai should be, because you know his his leader and most of his circle, and obviously the ones we encountered earlier, are all completely corrupt. They're just jaded and cynical, and time and again, you have them mouthing these lines that they're samurai, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and they're very misogynistic. So they basically like to want to trample all over women and use their position of power as protectors of the shogunate to lord it over the people and fuck over the poor people and pander to the rich people. So yeah, Shindo's films are pretty damn harsh on samurai, just as Kobayashi's films are. A guy who did Harakiri, very much into questioning the code and seeing the so-called chinks in the samurai armor, where the ugliness kind of peers through under the glory. Um, so this guy goes and he finds these two young ladies, and he recognizes them, and then you realize the twist, of course. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. That he is the young soldier whose mother and wife were assaulted and slain, and who are now avenging themselves from the grave. So he's being sent to destroy this thing that's destroying the samurai by this really corrupt head samurai. And this guy, I mean, he's really sleazy, and he's constantly screwing women, and he's got like he always has his robe all the way open, and he's got a really long hairy chest and a huge mustache. He looks very much like a Japanese Harry Reams. Definitely a Japanese porn star vibe is going on here. This was a mid '60s movie, but I mean it's like a '70s cat, here, and he's really just sleazy, and he really embodies all the bad things about the samurai code gone wrong. And so our man has to, the noble samurai, he has to slay his own family who's already been slain and come back to avenge themselves. And of course, he doesn't blame them for avenging themselves. And of course, he wants to make love with his wife again because she is a semi-solid in this case. These ghosts do have flesh, I mean, they do, they fly, they float, they flip around, they do cartwheels backwards through the woods. They kind of do this rising thing all of a sudden. Anything you can imagine that they probably did with a wire, the wire foo special effects, but not hopping through the trees like King Hu all the way down to Ang Lee, but with swords, but a lot of the floating ghost like motions, and he uses the woods as always, Shindo uses the natural environment to its best effect. The black and white lighting is absolutely flawless. There are some shots that are stunning, and of course, I've always thought that about Onibaba. This one is almost at that level. I mean, it's just like maybe a hair below it. Um, some people might argue they're on the same level, and that's cool. Um, but these shots are still amazing. I mean, this is a work of art. And as one of the write-ups that I encountered yesterday said that Kuroneko does with the photography, it takes it places that no other country was going at the time visually. That level of beauty, of just the sheer beauty of the images and the light and dark contrast. So yes, more of that chiaroscuro. So I love this movie. I'll be watching it later, and I recommend that you watch it. I recommend you try to do this Criterion sale if you can. These are hard times, and we're all pretty much broke. The man is keeping all of us down. So hang in there. And tomorrow I'll do a little 4 video treatise on the next 4 that I'm picking for the next 2 days of the 13 days of Halloween. So this one, I'll go ahead and note, is for the 27th of October. So we're getting ever closer. And that was Japanese Nightmares, Godzilla, and Kuroneko. You can't go wrong with them. Thank you. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.